Maritime du Québec, Canada. I'm very pleased to be with you today to moderate this session, a big session. The theme is Marine Biotechnology, Is It Happening? So this morning we will talk about the challenge facing the marine biotechnology in the industry in the next millennium. So how to identify new sources of marine bioproducts, develop new screening technologies, providing a sustainable source of supply and optimize production and recovery of the bioproducts. So to face this big session, I have with me three panelists, good experts from private sectors, research sectors, and training sectors. So let me introduce our panelists. Daniel Gressel, Chairman of Transalgae from Israel. Michelle Sabon, Director of Biotechnology at Brunswick Community College, USA. And Ragnhild Whittaker, Research Manager, Marine Biotechnology at Nofima, Norway. So before starting the session with questions, I'm inviting three of you to present yourself in few words. So please, Dan.
Hello, I'm Daniel Gressel, the chairman of Transalgae. We're a company in Israel that we are able to grow wild-type algae, and we could genetically modify the algae to make proteins and RNAi molecules.
Hi, I'm Michelle Spoon, and I'm at Brunswick Community College. We're a local community college. We have a very long-standing aquaculture program. We've been open for 20 years with that program and have just started a brand new two-year degree program in marine biotechnology.
Hi, my name is Ragnhild Whittaker. I'm at Nofima, the Research Institute for Food, Aquaculture, and Fisheries. I lead the Marine Biotechnology Research Group there, and I'm also the scientific manager of our upscaling platform, test processing platform outside Tromsø in Norway.
So great. Daniel, can you please break the ice with the first question? You're ready? So can you tell us what products you see coming from marine biotechnology?
Well, it's really interesting. I didn't know a lot when I got here, but just walking around for a half a day, you already hear a lot more products than I even imagined possible. In my little world, which is algae, there's probably 1 million species out there. Each of them do something a little different. There's, 30,000 known species. I could tell you in our little world, the species I understand, we're able to make wild-type algae, which is used in cosmetics. It's used in nutraceuticals. It's used, it turns out, fish hatcheries. Fish like to eat them, especially when they're little babies. In addition, we're able to genetically modify the algae. And we are currently putting in, for example, proteins. One of the things we would put in would be a vaccine. So instead of giving a fish a shot, you would add the vaccine to the algae. The algae could eat the fish could eat the algae, and the vaccine goes into the fish blood, and it provides them with immunity against the viral infection. It turns out you could also do something called RNAi, which is interfering RNA, which means you could stop a protein from being developed. So if you want, and something we have not done, for example, to have rat poison when a baby eats it, it would have no problem. You could knock out a molecule that's only inside of a rat, and then if a human eats it, it causes no problem. We're starting this on insecticides, so you would have an insect eat the algae, and that would kill the insect in question, and it has absolutely no effect on a human or any other organism. There's so many things that are just happening in my little world of algae, and then I'm hearing there's all sorts of things going on for medicines here and medicines there. We had someone show up and said he could do an antimicrobial for gram-negative bacteria. I'm saying, what is that? Because I'm not a biologist, so there's lots and lots of things that are happening. And I'd like to hear other things from the other people to see what else is going on.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. We heard from the last panel that there's a lot of products coming out of rest raw materials we work with a lot, and not only more advanced or sort of fancier products that you're talking about, but also the more simple products where we actually take what's edible, it's food, even though it's not conventionally eaten, and eat it. Like we're going to need more food, and so we'll make ingredients or just food out of it. And so that's also biotechnology. We need simple processing methods for that too.
Great, thank you. And Michelle, did you think it's possible regarding these emerging challenges and opportunities to introduce a sustainable industry in marine biotechnology?
Yes, and that's one focus that we have had at our institution, is introducing sustainable aquaculture and looking at biomedically important species. We have chosen 2 invertebrates that one of them already has a commercial value, the American horseshoe crab. So we're trying to create a viable local population that we've actually collected from the Cape Fear River that's in captivity, that might be able to contribute to the upstream processing of the use of their blood for biopharmaceutical companies. Another organism we've looked at is sea cucumbers, and we do have a population growing in captivity now. We're hoping to have a reproducing cohort by the end of next year. This has never been observed in captivity before. And as a new colleague of mine just pointed out to me, there is a vast array of potential drug products that come out of those sea cucumbers, from contraception to gingivitis. So it really is a potential organism for a whole slew of pharmaceutical.
Any other comments on sustainable industry?
With respect to it's going to reproduce, or you could go use it over and over and over again. It's like very easy when you think about it. The sea keeps growing things over and over and over again, and we're just going and either taking things from the sea or things very similar to taking things from the sea. So I don't see why this would not be sustainable just about anything we choose to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's vast biomass, and we're not even using everything that we're taking out net. So I think being better at using everything we have, and we can really create something sustainable.
Okay, great. Thank you. And to make links with other sector, Ragnhild, what do you think about the green sector, and how do we best identify differences and exploit synergies and knowledge from this sector particularly?
The green bioeconomy has really come a lot further than the blue bioeconomy. As I've seen, it's been going on longer. And so there are already processes that have been developed. We look at a lot of hydrolytic processes or hydrolysis. And so I think we should look to them to see what processes that they have that can be adapted to the marine biomass, and then also be aware that it's a different protein source. They're going to react differently to extraction methods and hydrolysis. And so acknowledge that and see what we can use from green bioeconomy, but also see what's new in blue, and in that way sort of not reinvent the wheel, but use what we can and then invent what we need to.
Yeah. Any other comments linked with green sectors? Okay. So let's talk about market. Ragnhild, I'll stay with you. How do we best couple the available products from marine biomass with the market demand?
See, that was also taken up in the last panel a lot, is that we need to produce products that there's a market for. So we need to know the entire value chain. We can't just find out that we can make this peptide that, for example, has a bioactivity, and then there's nobody that's going to buy it because it's not needed. So we need to know what's needed in the market, and then produce that from what we can do with biotechnology. Another example that I'll talk more about later, maybe, is that we need to have tools in order to try out these products in the market, and we're pushing our biotest platform a lot, in that small companies and researchers can come in and try and make a product and then actually try it out in the market before you invest in infrastructure. But we do need a lot of infrastructure also to get these products out.
Okay. Daniel, any comments?
Without a market, you won't make any money. Without making money, it won't exist. The government's only willing to waste their money on stuff for so long before someone's actually got to make money and get it done. So that's one of the big mistakes as an entrepreneur I've made initially was worrying about, oh, is it fun, or is this great, or is this going to save the world, as opposed to, am I going to make any money saving the world, in which case it'll work, else I'll get tired of wasting all of my own personal savings on doing something that no one else cares about, which you could do for a long time, and then you run out of money. So without a market, it's basically a waste of time, whatever we're talking about.
Great. And how can we adapt regarding the biomass and regarding to the seasonal variations? Ragnhild, do you have?
Well, so a challenge that we're facing in Norway is that there is biomass available, but it's available only in different seasons or in certain seasons, and so we need to better exploit logistically how do we overlap. Let's say we have a production facility somewhere and they're going to have one biomass maybe January through March. Then what do you do with the facility the rest of the year? And so we need to be better at looking at the opportunities seasonally. There's one type of maybe fish raw material, and then we move on to processing something else, you know, in the time, so we don't leave the infrastructure sitting down for a long time. So being sort of aware of what you have and when you have it, it's really important in being sustainable in the blue economy in that way.
If I were in Norway, I'd team up with Chile. They have fjords in their exact opposite seasons. So, so I mean, if you go to Chile, they could do the exact opposite seasons. They also have the fjords in the south, so you should make them your partner.
Well, maybe we have anybody from Chile here. We'll be happy to talk to you afterwards.
So, thank you. Dan, I'll come back to you. So how cost-effective are the products that you present earlier?
How cost-effective? Is that the word? Yeah. Let me tell you a story. So I followed a dream of coming up with a solution for energy, and we were going to make biodiesel from algae. And I had this great, brilliant cousin from the Weizmann Institute in Israel, and he said, oh, I could do this and I could do that. So I started to pour my money into making biodiesel from algae. And then one day I finally got an actual estimate as to cost per metric ton. It was going to be $50,000 a metric ton, given our level of technology at the time. I said, what? I said, okay, let me get this straight. If I'm going to make money making biodiesel, I have to do it for $500 a ton. So let's assume I'm able to reduce my cost by 90% and get it from $50,000 a ton down to $5,000 a ton. Now I only have to do another 90% a second time, which I guess was going to be $1 billion, $1,000 a ton of investment to get that last little bit out of there. And I'm just sitting there saying, what? So I fired my cousin, who I'd known for 50 years, and fired his son, who's my second cousin, and started over with people who cared about making money. And then you start to go through it and you say, well, what can we make for a high price? And in our particular case, you could do fish vaccines, which are any kind of vaccines. You could make human pharma. You could make all sorts of things that our values are millions of dollars a ton. As you come down the chain, you could start to do perhaps insecticides, which we'll call $50,000 a ton. And there's other companies out there who are making things for $12,000 a ton and $5,000 a ton using different processes than we're doing. But without actually sitting there and calculating what does it cost, what is it worth, what's my return on capital, what's going to happen if I don't pay attention to all the things you're supposed to pay attention to as a good businessman as opposed to a scientific dreamer, you lose all your money. There'll be nothing left. And trust me, it really goes fast, especially when they all need SUVs and things like that, and oh, I need this and I need that. And I said, how's that going to make me any money if I buy you an SUV? The answer is, oh, that's what I need to drive to work. So there's so many different ways where a company can just go wrong, making a mess of things. This is more like an entrepreneurial world that I'm talking about. But I think what we really have to do is every time I hear a discussion about this molecule or that molecule, one of the things that's always to me is like, what's it worth and what's it cost? And That's always the questions I ask, and most of the times I'll never get an answer, either because they don't know it or because it's a trade secret and they don't want me to figure out what they're doing. So this is, for me, the most interesting part of what we're in is figuring out what it's worth and what it costs, because there's so many molecules out there, there's so many organisms out there. This is this brand new, unexploited world. I've got 1 million genomes I get to go and sequence. Once I've sequenced 1 million genome, every single one of those organisms has something interesting that humans could use to make our lives better. And there's so much opportunity, there's so much low-hanging fruit, and there's so many different ways to skin this cat of figuring out how to make our lives better at a profit, that I'm very excited about the world. But if you don't worry about costs and you don't worry about benefits, it ain't going to work.
Am I allowed to ask a question? Do you think biofuel from algae will ever be there? Do you think it'll ever come to market?
Well, it'll come to the market. They just came to the market $128 a gallon. Sure.
In a cost-effective way.
My own guess is we know how to get down to, we're going autotrophic. We know how to get down to $5,000 a ton. The heterotrophic guys probably are down to $2,000 a ton. You got to get down to $500 a ton. And then there'll probably is going to be the case that we'll go slower than the fracking guys will. We're in competition with oil. And the answer is never or ever. The answer is, I would guess, probably not, because as we apply technology in our world, the people who are extracting hydrocarbons are applying technology in their world. There's the whole global warming debate, which we're not going to get into here, in which case you'd put a price on carbon, in which case the hydrocarbon guys would lose compared to the algae guys. But without something like that, I don't see it happening because in our lifetime, because the race will probably, given they're starting so low compared to us, will be won by the hydrocarbon guys relative to the algae guys.
Any other comments? No? All done. Dan, you have say everything. Perfect. So, a question for the three of you. Do we have the right tools to optimize and adapt the biotechnological process to the variety of biomass available, or that will be available? Do we have those tools?
Let me stumble into an answer. So here I am, I've used my own money to build a hedge fund, and all of a sudden I'm in the middle of this biotechnology stuff. And I, once again, bumble into someone who actually knows how to develop tools. He's someone from the Israeli army. And they have, how do I take an army which has got an IQ of 105 on average and have them change doing what they're doing to doing something else? Now, by the way, if they don't change, they'll be shot the next day. So an army's got to actually go and pivot from going down one procedure and going down to a different procedure. So he actually showed me how people with an IQ of 105, as opposed to my cousin who has IQ of 175, how the IQ of 105 is better than the IQ of 175, and he called it the draw conclusion meeting. So the draw conclusion meeting is everyone, including the person who's washing the dishes, could tell you what the right way is to fix this or fix that. Everyone's got equal rank. At the end, you discuss everything that was discussed, and then you draw conclusions, and then you change behavior. Now, if you just apply this to any single thing that's out there that we're trying to do in our lives, as scientists, as business people, running a giant organization, running a small organization, take all the knowledge you have, talk about it, draw a conclusion, change behavior. If you apply that and you stumble and bumble along, which is all we do when we're in the business world, it might look like magic, but Steve Jobs stumbled and bumbled, and we stumble and bumble, and we stumble and bumble our way to victory. If you apply that process, you'll solve all these problems, whatever they are, until the next problem shows up.
Ragnhild?
I think my answer is a little less convoluted.
You don't want to stumble and bumble?
No. I think we have a lot of the scientific tools. I think we need to put the different parts together. We have the market tools. We have definitely the basic research, and now how do we commercialize it? And again, we need those tools in order to get research innovation into commercialization through, as we said, biotest processing plants, but also different scale-up fast facilities where we can test the blue biotechnology in a market. And so I think we have the technology. I think we need to invest more in infrastructure, especially in scale-up, but also be aware of the market products that are needed. as you said, we need a market for everything, and there is a big market, and we need to fill all those holes. We have all this biomass, and we also need to think, if it's food, we should eat it, in my opinion. If it's not food, is it feed grade then? Can we use it as feed? If it's not feed grade, then would we use it for fuel or plastics and to replace bio or petroleum-based products? And so we need to be aware of the biomass we have and then the product that goes to that biomass. And then sort of section out what we have. But I think we have the tools, but we need to set them together.
Michelle?
I'm just thinking from a training aspect. Somebody in the previous session mentioned we have to stop looking for exotic organisms and novel drugs where we have all this biomass grown already, perhaps in the aquaculture industry, and they do have biomedical promise as well. So I think that from a training standpoint, we need to utilize that knowledge that's already established. We may have procedures and well-documented ways of growing these organisms and applying that kind of in a tech transfer towards a more biomedically related production or value-added products for those potential food products.
Right. So you talk about training, and what about the workforce? Do we have the workforce to support the marine industry? And I would like to hear from you, Michelle, but also maybe from Norway and Israel reality on that workforce.
Absolutely, and I'll talk a little bit about what we have locally. I'm both a product of a graduate program here locally and have started these 2-year degree programs in aquaculture and marine biotech. So we have this streamlined process from high school level. We have a marine science academy, to the 2-year degree level with multiple possibilities for students. And then from the baccalaureate level all the way up to postdoctoral training opportunities right here in Wilmington. So we definitely have the workforce. The problem that I see is a massive brain drain because we don't have a real strong industry here. It's just emerging. So I think that's what's key for this whole convention, is to try to get people to realize how much knowledge base we actually have. And it's kind of being wasted. So that's kind of my take on it.
Let me tell you an Israel story. All of our people have PhDs in biology, and they're from special units. So you could drop them behind enemy lines, they could kill someone, walk back home somehow, and then they go and grow algae for you. It's really very strange. It's totally different than happens in the United States. And now I'm going to speak, so that's what happens in Israel. So you ask, which unit are you in? They come up with some complicated units that, I don't even know if you guys know about the Stuxnet virus, where they make viruses and all computer viruses. So we get all these incredibly intelligent people who are capable of doing things in a different world, and then they have PhDs in marine biology. In our particular case, doing it in Israel, the cost of a scientist is probably 1/3 that of the United States. And when you add in the fact that they work harder, because in our particular case, because they all have options and things like that, that happens here. I'm not worried about labor at all, because if the price goes up, if we're able to make money, we'll hire away from other places and train them to do what we need to do. So I just don't think that's a problem. I think the only problem that's out there is, can you make money selling the product? In which case, if you can, you'll find the workers.
I think we see the same challenges in Norway as you're addressing in the US. It's that we have very, very, very skilled people with very high education, and are we actually applying all that knowledge where it should be applied? But you need people of all sort of levels of education, if you will, and not all levels of intelligence. I'm sure they're all equally intelligent. It's just they need different training. Some of them need to operate the machinery and be working in the industry, and some people need to do the basic research, where you need probably a little bit of a higher academic trainings.
Thank you. It's already the time to make the wrap-up of the session, so I'll give a few minutes to each of you to regarding that wide theme, marine biotechnology, is it happening? So what is your conclusion?
With 1 million organisms and 1 million different products out there that are useful to people, and all this unused low-hanging fruit, this is a very viable sector. A lot of people are going to make money. If they make money, you'll have a lot of things happening. If they don't make money, nothing will happen. But people will figure out how to make money. And so it's just probably one of the most exciting things in the world. I told my son, who's just starting college, I said, what are you going to major in? He said, biology and economics. I said, yes, thank you.
Michelle?
I think I'll just share a few points that I've read from the latest NOAA draft strategic plan for marine aquaculture. And they have estimated an additional 27 million metric tons that will be required to maintain present levels of per capita seafood consumption by the year 2030. And also that struck me pretty hard in the face was that U.S. imports more than 90% than any other country in the world for seafood. And this has led to an annual trade deficit of over $12 billion just in the seafood industry.
So I'm going to join you with that. Yes, it is happening. We see a lot of new products coming out, and as you say, as soon as we know how to make them cost effective, it will happen more and more. And also, there is an increased focus on sustainability. We need to be sustainable. We need to take care of everything that we have, and so it will happen more. And yes, it is happening.
Great. So, thanks, many thanks to the three of you for participating in this session, and thank you for. Thank you.
Sometimes you see, you want to control everything.